everybody, this is Alan with Meet the Thriller Author, and on the podcast I have the dynamic duo, Andrews and Wilson, on for the third time. You guys are the first guest I've had 3 times on, so that's, I don't know, you don't get anything, but wow.
Oh, nice. Well, it's good to talk to you again. We always enjoy it.
Yeah, well, you guys are so prolific, putting out great work out there, so it's not so surprising. So your latest book, Collateral, the tier 1, number 6 is out. It's been out for a couple weeks now, right? How are things going there?
Yeah, going
we're
great.
We're really excited.
Yeah, we do. All of our books really do great on Audible because we have just the amazing Ray Porter, and this one has been no exception. I think in the first 24 hours we made it to number 1 on the Audible list again. So. That has nothing to do with us, Alan. That's Ray Porter. Like that's all Ray Porter. But yeah, the book is doing great. We're getting a lot of positive feedback about it. With this one, we were maybe nervous for the first time because we really sort of made some big leaps in this book compared to the other 5 and did some things we hadn't done before. In particular, we sort of raised the global stakes. Our series is very much a deep, dark, black covert operations team kind of thing. But in this book, we set the backdrop of, nations, us and Russia on the brink of war. We brought in a lot of conventional force stuff to our covert ops backdrop. We had, Arleigh Burke destroyer. We had Marine F-35s and Air Force F-22s engaging the enemy. We have troops on the ground, and we had not done that before. In this series, and so we were excited to see what the response was, and we were relieved to find that people did enjoy it. It's still about Ember and Dempsey and Grimes and Munn out there in the covert world, but this backdrop of giving voice to like the Arleigh Burke skipper, for example, that was really fun for us. But you just never know until the book comes out whether they're going to like it as much as you like doing it, and so we were happy to find that people seem to be enjoying it.
Yeah, that's cool. And I remember when I talked to you guys last time, you were doing the research. You actually talked to one of the skippers, and so it's kind of nice now seeing the payoff of all that come together.
Yeah, no, that was really fun. Jeff and I contacted some friends of ours at the Pentagon and said, hey, do you guys have a Arleigh Burke skipper up there on staff somewhere that who'd be willing to, sort of be a subject matter expert for us? And so we had a great guy who will remain nameless, but he does make a little cameo somewhere in the book. He's one of the characters on the ship, but he's not the skipper, even though he was giving us guidance of how it would be on a skipper. So as you know, I was a submarine officer. Jeff spent plenty of time with special forces, and he's flown jets, so we know how the lingo goes on submarines and in aviation. But every platform has its own distinct lingo and stations and the way they talk to each other and stuff. So when Jeff and I work on the rough draft, we sort of did our best of how we thought they talked on an Arleigh Burke, and he's like, they wouldn't say that, or this is how we'd actually do it. So that was really fun. So we'd love to send some copies to some more surface warfare folks and see if they feel like we represented them in a positive and accurate light.
Yeah. Did this book is this require more research than your other books usually, or is it the same? I imagine probably took some more.
Yeah, a little bit more, just because of those kinds of things. The opportunity to talk to this guy at the Pentagon, who, by the way, he gave us an insane amount of time, and seemed to really enjoy it. Like, he seemed to really get into it, but also the technical aspects of some of the tactical jets. I know a little bit about aviation. I spent some time in that community, but it's all new now compared to what I know. So, I had to do a little research on the F-35, especially the Marine platform, which performs differently than the Navy and the Air Force platform. So that B model F-35 is a completely different jet, just because of, the way that this rotating engine in the center of the jet is configured. It changes a lot of things. But yeah, so the short answer is we did a lot more research on some of the technical aspects. In terms of Dempsey and his gang doing their thing, that was sort of the same stuff, talking to our people in the special operations community and saying, hey, is is this how you think? Is this going to resonate with people, or are we going to look embarrassed? And so we got the normal guidance, but the technical stuff definitely more this time.
Yeah, and the other fun thing we did in this book, and Jeff sort of mentioned this before, is we did some wargaming. So we spent a lot of time looking at the Black Sea. That's the sort of the powder keg in this book. The Black Sea is from a naval standpoint, it's very interesting. Massive captive body of water, access is controlled by Turkey. But since the Russians took the Crimean Peninsula, it's very obvious, that they have been going for naval superiority. They want to dominate the Black Sea space. Sevastopol, that naval base, they have built that thing up and loaded up with aircraft and surface-to-air missile batteries and lots of ships. So they've been very, very active. They're very, very aggressive controlling the Black Sea. So that was something that, neither one of us have actually operated in the Black Sea, but we wanted to make it a big part of this book. So that's the focal point for sort of all the Ukraine, Russian, American activity.
And we learned a lot. Like operating in the Black Sea is no joke for American forces. It's a bottleneck getting in and out of there. They have control of the airspace quite easily. I mean, yes, we can confront them in that airspace pretty easily from our assets farther to the east, but they've got kilo submarines in there. We can't even get a submarine in there undetected. And so it's a very unbalanced place for a conflagration from a naval surface warfare and undersea warfare standpoint. So that was exciting. And then these shifting borders in Ukraine with the annexation of Crimea and all that, that was also fascinating. We learned a lot. I have a friend who is, I won't mention his name either, but he's a colonel in the Air Force and is in the wargaming business. He actually does that, the Air Force now for a living. And so I was able to ask him a couple of times, so here's what we did. Is that stupid? And he's like, no, maybe tweak this and that. So we did get to engage a lot of people that we haven't engaged before, just because of the geopolitics, but also just the technical and strategic aspects of operating in that region. It was a lot of fun. I don't know. I hope the readers are having fun reading it, but it is one of the more fun books we've had to write. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can't wait. I haven't read that one yet, but it's definitely my to be. I'm gonna try the audiobook now that you mentioned that, because now you have me sold. What was the name of the narrator?
Ray Porter.
Yeah, Ray Porter.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. No.
Yeah,
that's
and
awesome.
Alan, for your listeners, I should point out, because this is a cool feature that a lot of people don't know about. If you buy the Kindle edition, because our Audible, contract is sort of linked with Amazon, they have this Whispersync feature, which means that for $1.99, you can add the audio to your Kindle version. So in fact, it's cheaper to go ahead and just buy the Kindle and the Whispersync add narration for $1.99 than it is to buy the audiobook. And what's really cool about it is if you're somebody who likes to read, but you have a commute, or sometimes you like to listen, but your preference is to read, this function will allow you to keep track. So you can read in your Kindle, and where you leave off, you can pick up with the audio, and it'll keep your place. Then when you go back to wanting to read the print, it'll switch back to where you were from the audio. So it's really, really great for folks that want to try out the audio, but don't want to have to invest in signing up for Audible for a year or whatever.
Yeah, I just discovered that recently. It is an awesome feature, because I usually read my books on Kindle, and it popped up. They're like, Amazon's so good at recommending things, and yeah, they're like, hey, you could do this. I'm like, well, I didn't know you could do that, and yeah, so you don't even have to have the $15 a month Audible membership or whatever, or buy credits. So it's a sweet feature.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. And so what about we also talked I really liked the novellas. Are you still working on those? And I know you were trying to get the fans involved to pick up which one. How's that going? How's that project going? That was a lot of fun.
It's going great. The fans have spoken. And so our girl Elizabeth Grimes is next up, and we've actually started on that novella. We're going to have it out to people in the spring. And that was it's a fun one for us. We were a little surprised that how overwhelming the fan selection for her to be the next novella was. Like, we knew she was popular, but we've got Kelso Jarvis and Dan Munn and like these bigger than life characters, but it was not close. It was not like down to a couple of votes. It was overwhelmingly. everybody wanted Elizabeth Grimes. And so that's a bit of a challenge for us because, these are action books that we write, and we're telling backstory in these novellas. Well, in Scars, what was Dempsey before he was Dempsey? Well, he was a tier 1 SEAL. So, I mean, it's easy to write sort of that SEAL action and find things in his backstory that would resonate. But Grimes wasn't. Grimes, the people that have read the first few books, they know that she came into this world with a bad attitude, a little bit of a cynic. In book 1, she was sort of considered herself the voice of reason, but to everyone else, she was just kind of a pain in the ass. And her motivation is the death of her brother, who was a Navy SEAL. So to try to find a compelling backstory was challenging if we were trying to limit ourselves to that action-packed stuff. So what we did instead was we went off into a political intrigue. And so we've built a really fun political suspense novella around Grimes that readers of this series will enjoy because there's lots of little Easter eggs tying back to the SEAL team that her brother served in, and eventually Ember through Kelso Jarvis and even Jack Kemper. So I think people will like it. We're having fun writing it because it's a little different.
Is it more challenging to write it from the female perspective too for you guys?
We get that question
we've always
a lot.
Given Grimes a voice.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say, I think we get that question a lot. How do you guys write from the female POV? And what we've taken the approach of is, we try to be gender agnostic to the best extent that we can. I mean, we don't know what it's like to be Elizabeth Grimes. We know what it's like to be, us, but we can just do our best to imagine, what she's feeling like and the things she's going through, and, what it would be like in this male-dominated, task force. And, we just try to treat the situation with, logic and respect, and hope that resonates with our female readers. And so far, the feedback has been really, really positive that she does resonate, and they feel like she's a realistic character, and that we represent the female, psyche and emotions and conditions, with a certain degree of accuracy. So we're proud of that.
And we're both married to amazing, beautiful, strong women who have had, careers and stuff like that. And so we have a sounding board that we can turn to when we're unsure. In terms of the novella, I don't think it was any more or less challenging than before, because we've always given Grimes a voice. She's had a POV from the very first book, and we've grown her character as we've arced her out, and grown her representation and her POV representation in each subsequent book. So we sort of have her voice in our head already, her point of view in our head already. It's a little challenging to go back to before we began her arc, but even that, I think we know her well enough now that it wasn't too difficult. I mean, we're not done yet, so maybe you're cursing us, maybe you're jinxing us, Alan, and we're gonna stumble over all of these things. So,
it'll be like, damn him.
Well, we have a new female protagonist character in our Sons of Valor series. So one of the things that we always try to do is pay attention to what our fans like. And over the years, one of the most popular characters in the Tier 1 series is Lieutenant Commander Chunk Redman. And so Chunk makes these cameos. He first showed up in War Shadows. He was back in Crusader 1, and then he returned in Red Spectre. So he's been in 3 of the first 5 books, and then of course this new book, Collateral, he's back. So Chunk has long-standing tradition in the series, and that's just because of how popular it was. So we were fortunate enough to get Blackstone, Rick Bleiweiss over at Blackstone has tapped us to write a new series featuring Chunk and the reconstitution of Tier 1. And we have a great female millennial character over there who's an analyst with the new Tier 1. And so that's another chance for us to, explore a different dynamic, a new female POV. So we're pretty excited about that series too.
We always love to have strong female characters in our books, not just so we don't get in trouble at home, but also because honestly, that's the world now. I can tell you, in a decade of deploying and working alongside special warfare in and out of the Navy, there are a lot of women in this space. There's no female SEALs, but there's a lot of women in covert operations and even in the special warfare space. You know, when we deployed with the East Coast Space SEAL team I was assigned to, there were women on that deployment in very active, important roles. And so it's not difficult to do it because it's real world, but it's important to us that we do it because we want to represent that world well. And Brian was alluding to Whitney Watts, this new female character. She was a little more challenging because, you know, she's completely different from Elizabeth Grimes. You know, Elizabeth Grimes comes from that, you know, more of a political figure to eventually she's a sniper on our team. And it's been a fun arc for her. But this woman has no interest in becoming an Elizabeth Grimes. She's very much a fish out of water, which has been really fun to write. But we hope that the readers are going to really enjoy her.
And when's that book coming out?
June.
June
8th, I
June
think.
8th.
Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That will be our next release. Big release.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
And
We'll get a
then-
novella out for you guys before then. But
Oh, okay. So another of the tier 1 novellas. Is that the
Yeah.
Grimes one that's
Yeah.
coming out? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
yeah, the Grimes will come out before June, and then Sons of Valor. That's the first book in that series, so we're really, really excited about it. So
Sweet. And that's your first book
June
with
1st, or
Blackstone,
June
right?
8th.
Yeah, that's our first
Yeah, well,
book
we
with
have a-
Blackstone.
Yep.
Now we
So
did,
we're
Jeff.
excited.
We did do Beijing Red and Hong Kong Black were produced. The audiobooks were produced by Blackstone, if I'm not mistaken.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Alan, did you ever read those books or hear about those? That's something most people don't know about with us.
No, I'm not. I wasn't
Yeah.
familiar with them. I was just kind of like, oh, I haven't heard of those.
Well, they're written under a pseudonym, Alex Ryan, for a different publisher. But yeah, the Audible deal was the audio was through Blackstone. I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they started
That series is sort of an international series. It's got a little bit of an interesting male-female dynamic, and so that was fun. Again, it was under that pseudonym, so a lot of folks don't know that was us, but that was us.
Oh,
There you go.
Oh,
There it
okay.
is.
Oh, yeah. Alex Ryan, huh? Is that a little Tom Clancy nod? Or
Yeah, I don't know. You have to ask the publisher, I think. We didn't choose that name.
Oh, okay. I got it. And then
But all of our books have strong females in it, including that one. The Alex Ryan series has a very strong female character who's actually one of the two lead characters. The Shepherd series has some strong women in it, and you know we're going to be writing this new series with Putnam, and has an amazingly powerful woman in it too. All of them different, but very strong female characters in all of our books.
Yeah, that was the big news too from the last time we spoke. You guys are picking up the mantle of WEB Griffin, WEB Griffin. That's amazing. How did that all come together? And are you guys nervous?
That's a fair question because it is intimidating, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, WEB Griffin is literally the icon. You know, we use that term, we overuse iconic, but he literally is the icon of military thrillers for sure, for decades and decades now. But he did have this one series, the Presidential Agent series, which was a more contemporary series of books set in, you know, post 9/11 War on Terror, with a really fun character named Charlie Castile. And there were 8 books in that series. And as you know, Mr. Griffin has passed away, and the estate wanted to bring that series back. And we were hugely flattered to be asked by Tom Colgan over at Penguin Random House if we would consider picking that series up. And it's not a reboot of the series. It's not starting back over like they do with the Jack Ryan character. This is continuing the series on. So we'll be writing the 9th book in that series. So the first thing you feel is flattered, and then reality sinks in, and you're like, oh, man, you know, that's a lot of responsibility to try to do justice to someone as iconic as WEB Griffin. But we had an advantage here, Alan, which is that the last book in that series, it's going to be, you know, 7 to 8 years between that book and when the first one that we write comes out. And so what we were able to do was insert that timeline into the plot arcing of the book, so that there's been an extensive period of time between book 8 and book 9, in our writing. And so that gave us a little more freedom. We could introduce new characters. You know, if you had to just pick up 3 weeks later from a book by someone like WEB Griffin, as some of our friends have done in various projects, you know, Mark Rainey writes in that space, Josh Hood writes in that space. That I think would be a lot more difficult. But being able to introduce new characters and have a little bit of a gap made it a little bit more palatable. And also the amazing support of both the estate and Tom Colgan, who said, look, we don't want you to try to reproduce WEB Griffin. We want Andrews and Wilson to write the next book. We want you to pay honor to the characters. We want you to keep those characters alive, but we know that you need to do it in your voice. And so that took a huge weight off of us. But it's been really fun, intimidating, but really, really fun.
Well, that's awesome. Well, you guys, when's that coming out? That's coming up next year or 2022 or?
That'll be late 21 is our understanding. We don't have a firm pub date, but I know that when we started the negotiations, they were talking about, you know, late in next year. So we'll have more announcements on the exact date, but the rough draft is pretty much done, and we're working with Tom now and with the estate to make sure it's exactly what everybody thinks it should be. But yeah, we'll be ready to go for a launch next year for sure.
All right. And so you guys are busy. Best place for listeners to find out about all your stuff, it's got to be your website.
Yeah, you can go to our website. It's www.andrews-wilson.com. And if you go there on the homepage, you can sign up for our mailing list. That's the easiest way. We don't distribute your emails or sell it or anything like that. So we'll keep that safe, and we won't flood your inbox with emails all the time. So just the breaking news. And another cool thing is if you subscribe to our mailing list, like we'll give you access to stuff first and special promotions and things like that we don't do necessarily on social media. So.
All right, cool. Well, guys, nice talking to you again. Thanks for coming on the podcast, telling us about all your projects. Always fun talking with you guys.
We always enjoy it, Alan. Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. This was a great time.
All right.